Hi, Dan here, Zapp Laser Studio. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've changed locations this week. Last few weeks, we've been having a bit of trouble with the lighting. So I tried to get a light. It didn't work out. That's going back to Amazon, get something better. So I've moved into our lounge. So I've kicked the family out and trying this. We've got a bit more natural light coming in here, which is great. But actually, it feels a bit echoey. So we'll see how it goes. We can always change again. The joys of trying something different from an environment that you're not used to working in, I guess. So how are you? Drop us a message if you want to. Anything throughout this, if you want to discuss further, you can always get in touch afterwards, either on here, Facebook, Instagram, or drop us an email. You can get to us through our website as well. But if there's anything that comes up during this live Q&A that you want to discuss, or you want more answers to, or anything that I don't obviously discuss, then please just drop us a little message, even if it's just to say hi. It's always nice to have a bit of interaction with these things, because otherwise I just feel like I'm talking to myself, which is quite normal for me anyway, but a bit weird when you're looking at yourself on a screen as well. So I hope you're all well. It's a funny old time at the moment, I think, for most of us, from people I'm speaking to, especially business owners. Everyone just feels in this real kind of weird limbo phase. So for us, it was about kind of survival and making sure that we could limit, our outgoings and make sure that we were going to survive through this really difficult time. We kind of did that. And then it was looking at things that we could do something a bit different whilst we are in this situation, which was for doing live Q&As, sending out regular emails, staying in touch with our clients, just trying to do a few different things. And now it's kind of like, well, I've done all that. And we're also looking at lots of different things to do with the studio. Bringing in new treatments for skin, looking at our cosmeceuticals, the skin ranges that we use, as well as the tattoo removal, and kind of growing that, focusing on that, working with Rona to improve all of that. And now it's kind of like, right, we need some information now, because we want to start to plan to reopen. We're itching to get going again. Our clients are really, they want to carry on with their treatments, and people are getting in touch telling me that how much their tattoo has faded a little bit extra during this time, which is great. But there's no information. And a lot of the information out there right now is false. There's a lot of, try not to read too much into what the newspapers are saying. Try and concentrate, directly on the information that the government are giving you. Problem is, there's not an awful lot of that. So everyone feels a little bit in limbo. Everyone wants to reopen again, but no one knows when. Read in the paper today that hairdressers and barbers aren't going to be able to open until maybe September. Well, I read last week that they were going to be opening mid-May. So who knows? Who knows? And I think that's the hardest thing at the moment, is just kind of keep going, plan, but not being able to actually do anything about it. So for me, I've been, trying to do a bit of work, but also trying to spend a bit more time with the family. Some of you will know, some of you won't. I've got a 6-year-old, so trying to keep him a little bit of education, not a lot, because that's proven to be more difficult than we would have ever imagined. And I used to be a teacher. So yeah, just trying to keep things normal, I suppose, and appreciate, with all this horribleness that is going on around, and I know that this is having a massive impact on families for many, many reasons. There's a lot of people dying, and there's a lot of people at the coalface who are really struggling, and they're out there, 14, 16 hours a day working in the most difficult conditions possible, I suppose. But for me, I have to I have to be thankful for having a bit of extra time with my family at this stage, and you can only take out of it what you can. So anyway, I just thought I'd say hi. Went on a bit, didn't I? Let's talk about a little bit of tattoo removal today. I had a question that came in last week, between now and last week, linked to the video that I did, or the Q&A that I did last week, and it was around white ink. So I just want to share that with you. I have spoken about white ink before, but it's never a problem to discuss these things again. White ink is tricky. White ink is difficult because it's not a color in the spectrum of light. Therefore, lasers don't recognize it. So when they hit it, the ink oxidizes, and it either turns a kind of a peachy color or a dirty gray. And more often than not, it is that dirty gray. Sometimes it's there, and sometimes that's fine. You take that calculated risk because it's going to be covered, or it's too much of it to avoid. Other times you can avoid it. Other times you don't even know it's there. Sometimes it's mixed in with colors, during the application process, And actually, we don't know it's there. The client doesn't know it's there, and all of a sudden you've got this dirty grey mass. And obviously, we're trying to avoid that because that can then become very, very stubborn and very difficult to remove. Sometimes it does remove in time. Depends how dense it is, really. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of encouragement and it will go. But more often than not, it can create a problem to remove. So that's that one. I did have another question come in about scarring. We're firing a laser at you. So there is always a risk of skin damage, permanent skin damage. But with our laser, because of the technology that's used and the fact that it's so advanced, that risk is almost zero. But there is still a risk. And there's a little video that I did on our Facebook, if you want to have a look at that, done about 3-4 weeks ago, just before we went into lockdown. And it just explains a little bit more. But basically, the energy is delivered incredibly quickly with our laser in a picosecond. It's released in a picosecond. Therefore, it doesn't hang around. It doesn't damage the cells that contain the ink. And it's a much lower risk of damaging that skin. Also, it's not a thermal-based laser. So although it can feel hit, I just speak too fast sometimes. Just slow down. So sometimes, so it does feel hot during the application because the pressure waves push through the skin and they create friction, but that energy dissipates, comes out of the skin very quickly, and it calms very quickly. Older lasers, older technology, much slower, much more heat, thermal-based lasers potentially as well. Energy is delivered much slower, released much slower, so it stays in the skin for a longer period of time, and that's a much higher risk of causing skin damage. So with our laser, yes, there is a risk. There's always a risk with any laser, and if anyone tells you there isn't, they're lying. But we carry out a really thorough consultation. It takes 45 minutes, including a test patch. We then wait at least 24 hours before we treat you to assess that there's no adverse reaction to that laser. You can still do all of that, and you just could be really unlucky with a reaction, a bad reaction to your skin, and that's just bad luck. But it's incredibly rare. So it depends where you go. Some places will be using older technology. Maybe their training isn't as good. Their understanding of how to use the laser isn't as good. And maybe they don't ask the right questions, medical questions. Maybe they don't do a test patch. So you've got to make sure that you do your homework, do your research, read the reviews, look at before and after images, investigate as much as you can what laser they're using. It's very difficult to understand always, what technology people are using. But if they've got a PicoSure, then 99% of the time they're going to be doing it right. So that's the benchmark really to look for. So I put on Facebook this morning a picture of a tattoo. We had an inquiry come in this week. Spoke to somebody, that potential client, and they're very happy for me to share this. So I'll show you. I mean, basically, it is on our Facebook, but I'm sure that a lot of you won't have seen that already. So this is the tattoo that we're going to be discussing today. So it's kind of it's almost a half sleeve. It's the top part of the arm, obviously. It does go around the arm a little bit, not huge. I mean, it goes around the bicep a little bit, goes around the tricep a little bit. So that's the bicep, but it doesn't go all the way around the limb, which is good. It means that there's less ink to treat, less expense, but also we can potentially treat that whole tattoo in one go. Now that does depend, and we'll come on to that. Let's just talk briefly about the nature of it. There are parts of this tattoo that will disappear in one treatment. The lighter ink, especially within that rose, will vanish, because I've said this many times before, and this is probably going to become a little catchphrase for me, but we're very much governed by how a tattoo is applied as to how it removes. Anything that's deeper, darker, denser always takes longer than something that's lighter and more superficial. Makes sense, right? So if something's shallower in the skin and there's less of it, it's going to go much quicker than something that's packed in there really tight, really densely, and that we've got to chip away at. That's maybe a little slightly deeper and packed really tight, as I say. So the application plays a massive part. However, even the dark ink, it does look a little grainy, which suggests that actually it's not packed as tight as it could be. So, I mean, it's one thing to look at a photo and make judgments. It's another to see it in reality and in the flesh, so to speak. We get a much better idea at that point. Most of the time, our guesswork, our estimates, our understanding is pretty much the same. But sometimes you see it in a photo, you make one judgment, you see it in reality and you make another. It's just the way it is. You can't pick everything up that you want to from a photograph. But it does look a little bit grainy. So that's really good. When it comes to that, it comes to removal, then that application and the fact that maybe it's not quite into those areas. The darkest bits really are probably around the eyes. So if you see, no, let me do that again because that was terrible. That's better. So as you can see, I mean, outline generally gives us the biggest headache because of the way it's applied. It is deeper, it is darker, it is denser. And therefore, that's probably the bit that will take the longest. The microphone is a little bit darker as well, but it should treat well. And we should see some really good progress. Let's talk about that. Chances of fully removing that tattoo, incredibly good. I don't see anything at this stage that would suggest otherwise. What we don't know about this client is health, medication, lifestyle, circulation, how quickly they heal, all those types of things. We'll gather that information during a consultation, but there's nothing here to suggest that we should be concerned at this stage, so that's great. And I haven't had any information to the contrary. So we can just go on what we can see. And for a tattoo like this, we would normally say between 4 and 8 treatments for full removal. I don't see why that shouldn't fall somewhere within that. It's gonna treat at all different rates, as I've said. That lighting's gonna go first treatment, straight off the bat. Oh, I'm not very good at this, am I? Let's try again. Straight off the bat, and then we're going to get that lighter to mid kind of ink. That's going to take a couple of treatments. Then we're really going to be focusing on that really dark ink, and that's probably going to take another, well, it's anybody's guess, but I would say another 3, 4, 5 treatments after that. So all in all, between 4 and 8 treatments, but somewhere towards that higher end of that estimate. But the good news is the way that we price our tattoos is on the amount of ink that we're treating. Some clinics, some studios don't do that. Some people would look at that. Some clinics would, let me try again. Some clinics would look at that and they'd say, right, well, it's X amount per treatment, times 6 treatments, course of 6 treatments. We'll give you 1 free or we'll give you a bit of discount, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the same cost every time you come in, no matter the fact that we're treating less ink. Now, some tattoos are like that. Some tattoos, let's say, for example, maybe a big tribal type tattoo that's been colored in 3 times and is really dark and dense. You're not going to be getting rid of ink in the same way you would be with this tattoo. You're going to be chipping away at it for a long time. You're going to be treating roughly the same amount of area, the same amount of ink for quite some time. So that type of tattoo, you would be able to say, yeah, course of 6, course of 8, course of 9, whatever they do in a studio. We do 3, 6, and 9. Definitely, that it's going to be the same amount every time. With this, it's going to be X amount for your first treatment. We would then reassess 10 weeks later how much ink is left, reprice it based on the amount of ink that we'll be treating, and then go with that. Third treatment is probably going to be roughly similar to the second, and then second to third treatment and so on, it's going to stay about the same because it's that dark ink that we are going to be chipping away at. So for us and for our clients, we think that's the fairest way of doing it because we are only treating the amount of ink that's there. So why do it any other way? It's not fair. It doesn't make sense. Like I say, this type of tattoo, other tattoos are different. So if we are chipping away, then it would remain the same. So I'm just going to show this one more time because we've had a couple more people come on. This is the tattoo that we're talking about. Location is good. So anything that's closer to the heart is considered to treat better. Your lymphatic drainage, your circulation is better when it's closer to the heart. So generally, it doesn't make a huge amount. But the only time it does make a bigger difference is if a tattoo's on your extremities, on your hands and feet. And then that gets times by 5 or 10 if someone's got bad circulation or they've got an autoimmune deficiency disorder. Or, if there are other factors that come into it, that can then make a big difference for tattoos that are on your hands and feet and on your extremities. But upper arm is good. And also in terms of pain, this is a really good area because it's hardy, less nerve endings, if you like. Very much like if you're going to get a tattoo, some places are a lot more painful than others. And yeah, this upper arm is great. And as you get towards that elbow, as you start to come down towards that elbow, it's going to get a bit more uncomfortable. As you go around to the back of the arm, to the front of the arm, it's going to get a bit more uncomfortable, but all tolerable. And to treat that tattoo first treatment. If we were going to do it in one go, which we could, that is a great size to be treated in one go. That would take probably first treatment around 12 to 15 minutes. Our laser fires at 10 shots per second. So as well as it being one of the most effective and safest lasers in the world, it's also one of the fastest. So 10 shots per second. A lot of older lasers fire at 1 or 2 shots per second. That would take, well, they wouldn't even treat that down into quarters, and then each quarter would probably take them about half an hour. So, you know, even though it hurts, with us, much, much faster. The other thing is, you know, we would need to make sure that the client was happy with the way it felt and that they could actually manage through all of that, but it is possible. Then the second treatment, once we've got rid of all that really light ink, then we're probably looking at maybe a treatment of around 10 minutes and maybe even slightly less. So you can see less ink, less time, less pain, less cost. The only other factor really that would stop us treating all of that in one go is if that was really thick, dark, dense ink on the whole tattoo, without all of that sort of negative space, without that light ink, we might consider that splitting that into two. We might, because we don't want to overload the immune system. So pain would be one thing, whether it went all around the arm would be another, but then also overloading somebody's immune system would definitely be a factor that we should take into account. Because if we overload the immune system, two things could happen. The client may feel unwell, and that can happen even if you're treating a small tattoo, because it's your immune system that deals with this. Therefore, you know, if it's compromised and you're maybe got something lurking in the background, you could feel run down for a day or two. Not so usual with a small tattoo, but when you treat a bigger tattoo, if you give the body too much to do, you're overloading the immune system, and therefore your immune system is compromised. It means you're possibly slightly more chance of something that's lurking in the background coming to the forefront, maybe feeling a little bit run down for a day or two. It doesn't always happen. It's kind of on the unusual side, but it can. And then the other thing is, I lost my thread. The other thing I was saying was, it may not be as effective. So if we give the body too much to do, you may not get as much fade. But again, that is one on the bigger side of what we would treat in one go, but absolutely fine to do all of that. Take a breath. Cost. So someone's just Mitch, who's one of our regulars on here. He's asked the question: how long does it roughly take to treat each treatment? I explained it without even reading the question, which is fantastic. So there you go, Mitch. If you've got any others, let me know. We could stop and start as well during that treatment if it was kind of unbearable, or the client wanted a little break. We could do a couple of minutes, have a break, couple of minutes, have a break. Takes longer overall, and most people like to just carry on because they can get through it. The stopping and restarting can be too much for some people. You know, they'd rather just keep going. But for other people, they like to break it down into manageable chunks, and that's absolutely fine as well. We like to take our time. You know, so even though, say that takes 15 minutes, that actual session in terms of coming in and the appointment would probably be first treatment. Maybe I'd book out 45 minutes so that we can take our time, discuss it, work out a plan. Second treatment, then probably half an hour and so on. Half an hour roughly. So we like to take our time because it's really important that the client feels comfortable. Relationship, trust, confidence, you know, all of that is so important to what we do, and obviously to our clients as well. So in terms of cost, so this tattoo, let me show you again. Not good at this, am I? Let's try that again. Brilliant. So this tattoo, it is quite large. It's on the upper arm from the elbow to onto the shoulder, and it does go around the front and the back of the bicep slightly as well. That's going to be £300 for the first treatment. 10 weeks later, client comes back in, we reassess on the amount of ink that's left. We're probably then going to get that to about £200 per treatment, roughly. Third treatment, roughly the same, maybe slightly less, but we would have to see where we were at that point, because every tattoo is different, every person is different, everybody's body digests the ink in slightly different ways. Some bodies just soak it up, some are, you know, find it quite stubborn. There's a lot of variables with tattoo removal around health, medication, etc. But the application and the ink that's used, as well as the health, they're the biggest three things really that we need to take into account. So, and that can actually have a massive impact on tattoo removal. So even though we've got the fastest, safest, most effective laser in the world, PicoSure, some tattoos are just stubborn. Some tattoos are more difficult to remove. We have tattoos that come in that we have to say to people, well, normally it's 4 to 8 treatments, but actually you might be looking at more like 12. Not always what people want to hear, but we have to be completely honest. There's no point saying to someone, oh yeah, we'll get rid of that in 4 to 8 treatments, and then they're coming in their 8th and they've got a tattoo that's half removed, and they're like, well, hold on a minute, you told me. That would never happen, because we're always honest and we are talking to our clients and we're being transparent at every single step of the way. So every time they come in, we talk about the tattoo, we talk about the after effects, we talk about what's been achieved in that time, what the plan is coming up, how we think this is going to behave now that we have a better understanding of the tattoo. And we communicate with our clients, and sometimes it might not be what a client wants to hear, that their tattoo is going to take longer than they wanted, but we would know that much more after the first treatment. After that first treatment, we see how that tattoo is going to react. It either reacts really well and we are surprised, and that still happens, about how much fading we've achieved in that time, or it's kind of like, yeah, okay, that's standard. We're happy with that. That is roughly what we would expect. And then other times it's kind of like, okay, that's not what we would expect. We would definitely expect more progress. Let's look at what we did. Let's look at your tattoo. Let's ask you a few more questions, because sometimes maybe the information that they've given isn't not quite right, but maybe we haven't thought to ask a question, or they haven't thought to offer information that could actually affect the removal of their tattoo. So we reinvestigate what's going on, and normally we then discover a reason. Could be down to health, could be down to circulation, it could be down to a few other bits and pieces that hasn't come out in the consultation, which is a very thorough consultation, but clearly, sometimes you miss something. But most of the time it is, yeah, that's brilliant. That's exactly what we would expect. Let's carry on. So I really should slow down, take a breath. But that's I think probably all the information that I can give you for that. I think that's probably it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed that I would normally tell the client, or what I would expect them to ask me. Okay, so that's it for that one. I hope that helps. I haven't got any more tattoos today to discuss, because I knew that one would take a little bit longer. We discussed last week, we discussed a small kind of stencil type tattoo that was about 15 years old, that the client wanted fading down to cover. And that was very dark and dense, a little bit of scarring in there. So if you want to know a bit more about that type of tattoo, go back to last week's Q&A, have a little look at that. That will give you lots of information around that type of tattoo. Sorry, itchy nose. And then the tattoo that we discussed last week was a full sleeve. Really bold, really vibrant, really intense colors, very well applied, very dense ink, and a full sleeve. So if you want to know more about that type of tattoo and the removal for that, the client did want to fade that again to cover. If my memory serves me right, they did. So again, we discussed all of that as well. But if you've got a tattoo or questions around all those sorts of things, lots of different colors in there as well, so 2 different wavelengths that we would use, and we can treat all those colors, then have a little look at that one. That would really help you in terms of information as well. If there is anything else that you would like answers to, you can always leave questions after this, or you can get in touch via email, info@zapplaserstudio.co.uk. You can go onto our website and you can get to us through there. Message on Instagram, message us on Facebook. We're open, even though we're closed. We're here. Please send me your photos. If there's a specific tattoo you want information on, please don't feel that if you do that, you're then tied in and we're going to force you to come in. We're not. We just want to give you the information you need to help you make an informed decision moving forwards. And I've got time at the moment to look at those in depth, get back to you with a video message, which we would normally do anyway. And then you've got the information you need to then make a decision what you want to do. Carry on, investigating your options. Absolutely. And although we're here, we're a business, we try and be as impartial as possible, because we understand that there's a huge amount of information out there online, and it's very, very hard to decipher. That's the word I was looking for. Decipher what is real and actually what's not biased, and actually what will help you to make a decision moving forward. Everyone's claiming to have the best laser. I know we do that, but we have. Simple fact, we do. We've got the most advanced technology in the world for tattoo removal. That's why I say it. But there's a lot of people out there that are making the same claims that haven't, because it's an unregulated business. There's no one looking over their shoulder to say, hold on a minute, you can't say that. That's not true. So be aware, be careful. Don't just base you know, where you're going to go for your tattoo removal, on price, location. Look at their before and after images. Look at their reviews. Talk to people who do you know that's had tattoo removal, actually has had a great experience. There's a lot of information out there. Do your research before you dive in. Don't just base it on location and price. So thank you very much. Please get back to me if you've got any questions around any of this. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.